when you say higher self, most of us mean that that's a connection to a higher perspective, a divine force outside of us that can help guide us through the difficulties in our lives, a force that is not affected by such things as insecurities, anxieties, worries, or need or greed for things in this physical world. But having that perspective causes some issues for us when we're trying to integrate that into our daily lives, because if you've been on the spiritual path, you've probably seen lots of different perspectives and ideas of what you should and shouldn't do. And so you believe that if I can just find the perfect practice to do this thing, then my life will be taken care of. When we think of the higher self, it's kind of the spruced up version of that. That, okay, so this is like down to world stuff that's not so important, but this higher self, that is something that is beyond here. It's kind of, if I can just find that part inside of me, this higher self, which is outside of me somehow, then I will have found the solution to all of my worries and everything will be okay. Very likely before that, you were going about your life thinking that, oh, if I can just find the perfect partner, if I can just have enough money, if I can just find the perfect job. And that turns into a spiritual quest where you ask, if I could just find my life purpose, if I could just find what I'm supposed to do with my life, my higher calling, my goals. And that's the promise of the higher self. But the higher self is still something that is happening inside of you. And when we think about it this way, because we tend to separate it and create duality, we talk about how it's not good to feel like I am here and you are there and you're separate from me. That is something most people who practice meditation or spirituality see as that's something bad. Don't do that because you're creating separation. But when we think of a higher calling and a perspective that is outside of us, that is still doing the same thing. We're thinking that there's something outside of us that is supposed to save me, help me. And when I find that part that is supposed to help me, then everything will be fine. So how do you actually combine this in a way that gives you that guidance, that gives you that perspective of life that is not affected by greed, that is not affected by all these attachments and the desire for things to be a certain way? And there is actually a way, but it's not to look outside of you. Instead, it's to look inside of you and to see that there's something blocking that. And we can at times have that perspective, and people then name it the higher self. And what actually happens, if you look at this, is that you have a feeling that I am here. And when I see you behaving in a way that I don't like, then I feel this distortion, this pressure towards what you're doing, that I don't like it. I wish you were doing it differently. If you could just do it differently, then I would be happy. When we take on the perspective of higher self, we don't have that feeling. It's, oh, they're doing something I disagree with. And we don't have that reaction towards that. Many believe that this is something coming from the outside, that it's a divine power giving us this clarity. But what actually happens if you look at this and you stop being identified with the struggle and instead see that it's just something that I have been conditioned to do, that I have learned to do throughout growing up. I have somehow caught up by my parents that, oh, people who dress that way, they're bad people. Or society tells us that, well, look at that person. They look like that. They're not good people. They talk that language. They're bad people, so you should stay away from them. And that's what's creating this distance, this separation. When you can look at that and when you can start breaking down the idea that you need other people to do something or be something for you to be happy, then you will yourself become this higher perspective, this higher self, which is not separated from the world around you. But it's not that you found something out there, and it's not that you somehow went to a different place than here. Instead, it's that you allowed yourself to see here as it truly is, to see here without this flickering sense of self coming in and judging, analyzing, saying that this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this, I know what this is safe, this is unsafe. All of those concepts create a sense of separation, which makes it so that we cannot fully experience the world. And the idea of a higher self does actually help us experience the world like that, but you're giving control outside of you. And you're always going to have that sense of separation, even though you'll have moments where things will seem clearly and easy to perceive the world this way. So it's not a difficult thing to do. I would say that it's not even a complicated thing to do. The reason that it's hard for many of us to do is that we believe that we are so special and we are so different than everyone else, so that it couldn't possibly be that easy that I would just allow myself to see the world as if though I was the higher self. Not believing that I'm taking off someone else's perspective, but actually letting go of all that distortion, all that pressure, all this feeling of I am separate and this out there can somehow hurt me. That's something you can do immediately, and it's something that doesn't have to be difficult, but can also take a long time and be very complicated because of all these conditionings and ideas that we build up into our mind. One of the things that really pushes out of this and makes it more difficult to feel this way is how we perceive time. Because without time, it's very easy to be here and not feel a disconnect from the world outside of us, because it's just here. You need a life story to feel the disconnect to the things outside of you. If you don't have a life story, then you don't disconnect to everything. Everything just is. And that's why being able to perceive reality right here, right now, is one of the most important ways that you can connect to being your higher self. And if you want to know more about how to do that with a monk that's called Thich Nhat Hanh, who has a center called Plum Village, where he talks about I have arrived, I am home, which is a way of describing how we arrive in this moment, arrive in being here. And I made a video here that is really going into a practical way of approaching this, so that you yourself can arrive here and feel that you have become home when you're just in the now.